You are listening to the Nightly News Podcast, the voice of the Knights.
Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I'm so honored to be joined. And I say this a lot, but as long as the other people aren't listening, my favorite guest that I have on this show, the executive director of the Central Penn College Education Foundation, Sandy Box. Sandy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure being here. I love it.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you, number one. But number two, it's a pleasure to have you because of the reason that you're here. Yes. And we've had you on consistently twice a year for the last, and sometimes more, over the last, since the podcast started.
Correct.
And we have you on when it is time for the scholarship application to open. It opens twice a year, every August and February. So we're really looking forward to talking with you a bit more about that. But also the marquee event on the Education Foundation calendar, the golf tournament that's going to be happening on Friday, August 9th at Rich Valley Golf. And there are still spots available?
Yes, we're 28 teams. I'd love to have 32. So there's plenty. I mean, I can go to 36. 32 would be awesome. So if anybody out there listening wants to throw together a foursome, there's still time to do that.
Well, and we will certainly talk more about that and certainly the successes of last year, but also looking ahead to this year as well. And we are also being joined here by Nightly News President Abby Bresky. Abby, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to talk about what we have to say today.
Well, and we have a lot to say, and we can kind of start there. And, of course, we will get to the Education Foundation Scholarship and the golf tournament momentarily. But I want to lead today by talking a little bit about something that you've been working on. So, Abby, I know we've talked about this in the past, but in the past, you were an intern of the Education Foundation, and you have reunited with Sandy this summer term for our Projects in Corporate Communication class, which is sort of like a mini internship last year. And every year during the golf tournament, Sandy is an office of one, as she likes to say. When the golf tournament comes around, there's a lot to do. So let's start off with this. What are some of the things that not only you have been working on with Sandy, but that you expect to work on throughout the duration of this project?
So obviously the Golf Open has a lot that goes towards it. So we've been discussing different aspects of that, but we've also been discussing what Sandy does each month, how each of those things get done, and a ton of questions that I have. I think one of the things that I've learned is a nonprofit is not easy.
Of course not.
It is not easy, and there's a lot of things that go into it, and there's a lot of fine details, but we've kind of been putting those on paper and helping me to understand what all goes into it.
Well, and one thing that I think that we do want to talk about here, and we asked Sandy ahead of time if this was okay, but Sandy is retiring at the end of the year, and this project is about really leaving that next person with a guidebook to how to approach the 50 million things that you do in your job, Sandy. And so I'm positive that you appreciate Abby's efforts because not only she has familiarity with you in the organization, not only receiving it, interning, but she, you guys have known each other for a long time and hopefully have a good working relationship.
We do, and it is very, very helpful because, as we were talking earlier, I just do the things. I don't think of the steps, and so for me to sit down and say, I do this A through Z, whatever, I know I would miss the steps. So with the project that we're working on is that I've given her a timeline of things that I do on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, and she's reviewing everything and asking the questions that somebody who knows nothing about it would ask. And so then I go back and get the answers, and then she's going to ask more questions, and I'm going to get more answers, and so that'll compile the information that the new person coming in is going to need to be able to do the job. I've been doing it for 13 years, so a lot of everything is in my head. But I need to get it out of my head and onto paper for the next person to be successful in the position.
Well, it's interesting, too, for me. I have had 11 years here at the college now, and a lot of the things that I do are just sort of clockwork in the same way. So if somebody was coming in new to my position, it would be very difficult for them to know in what order to do things, when things need to be done. And especially for you, mine's a little bit different in that we're sort of beholden to the quarter system, but you're beholden to a lot of other things, whether it be annual budgeting, when meetings take place with the board, those types of things that are very important that you want to make sure that that is continuing moving forward. So, well, Sandy, we're going to miss you so much. I mean, I can't even put into words how wonderful it's been to work with you, but this is not goodbye yet.
No.
Sandy will be here through the end of the year, and we will make sure to have her back on the Nightly News podcast before she calls it quits.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And you're not getting rid of me either. I'm sorry. You're stuck with me. You're going to hear all about my career. It's not over yet,
Well,
Sandy.
Abby, you have a friend for life in Sandy. I'll tell you that. Well, I do want to get into the Education Foundation Scholarship. Again, that's going to be open on August 5th through the 30th at foundation.centralpenn.edu. So let's talk a little bit more about this question, maybe how Abby might handle it, but also, Abby, I'd love to hear more about how you approach these scholarship essays in the past, because you've been extremely successful in the awards that have come along with it. So the question for this term, Sandy, how will you use your degree in education to make a difference in your life and community? Right. So first of all, obviously it's a wonderful question, but why was this question the one that was selected, and maybe what are some tips for how people might approach this?
Well, I think part of your education is not just getting your degree, but it's giving back. Because that's how you get involved with your community. That's how you truly do make a difference. That's how you succeed in life, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. But obviously it was the opinion of other people too, because that's the question that was selected. But I think the other thing is it gives you the opportunity to think. You're stopping to think, okay, I'm getting a degree. Well, what am I going to do with it when I have it? How am I going to impact? How will it impact my life? How will it impact my family's life or the community in which I live? And so we try to ask questions that we learn about the person, about the individual, because that's the only way that the reviewers can learn about the person who's submitting the application. So I try to pull questions that really pull into the personal aspect of it. And so this is one of those that we thought, well, this was a good one because it not only it gives us insight into the person's perspective and to what they have planned in their life, but it also gives the student that's applying the opportunity to actually to stop and think about what it is that they're going to do. And sometimes you lay those plans in your head and then you follow through with them. So, it's like think about it and it'll happen kind of thing. So
manifest.
Yes, manifestation. So hopefully that's what we will do, and it'll give people the opportunity to think a little bit, maybe a little broader on what it is that they are going to do.
Two things I wanted to point out there. Number one, you did say that this is the way that evaluators learn about you. Right. I think a lot of times, especially maybe for an online student, their education is maybe a little bit more impersonal, and it's just like sort of an exchange, right? That's not what this is. It's like we really want to know about you and determine if this money who's been given by donors is something that's going to be worthy to you. So it's not just necessarily what you see on paper. It's how well is it put together? How much thought did it appear that you put into this? Right. And that's what I try to tell all of my students. And we'll get into some of the fine aspects of it here in a minute. But that was one thing. The other thing is that community service is such an important part of life. I mean, in today's day and age, working in higher education, Sandy, we see a lot of rhetoric about people maybe not finding the same value that at one time they did in a college education, which obviously for us, we could sit here and talk with you for an hour about why that's not the case, but I don't want to do that. But you made a great point that your education, going to those classes, turning in your assignments, that's not all it is or should be. Yeah. There should be a level of mentorship from your professors in your major and out of your major. Right. There should be a level of camaraderie with your classmates and developing a network so you have people to lean on when you get out of school. And I think that with the way that education has changed over the years, some of that is being lost. And to me, that's the most important part of your education. Of course, learning the things in your classes is wonderful. But as Abby, I'm sure, will tell you, even from the time that she started here till now, things have changed unbelievably in our field. So all we can really teach you to do is be critical thinkers, be lifelong learners, be dedicated to your community, and to build a network. And that's what, to me, education is. It's not just that I'm going to go to class, I'm going to turn this in, I'm going to get an A, I'm going to graduate. It's all of those other things that accompany an education that I think is what is being missed in some of the rhetoric that you might hear in the news and in public opinion. So
Yeah,
I didn't know if you wanted to comment on that.
It's not just a process. Getting an education and getting a degree is just not a process. It's not something that you check off the box. You have to learn a lot of things about yourself, about what it is that you want to do, about how you learn, about how you feel fulfilled. And so it's not just to check your box, oh, I got my degree, I'm done. It's what do you learn throughout that process? What do you learn throughout that journey? Who do you meet? How do you connect? There's just so much more. And that's the kind of things that we need to get when students complete their essay. It's not just, oh, well, I'm filling out this essay so I can get the money. No.
You're missing the entire point.
You're missing you're missing the point. We're trying to learn about you, because what we learn in through the essays that we receive is we hear the stories, and those stories then I take to donors and say, okay, listen, perfect example is that I had a student last time who submitted an application, received an award, and of course, I always ask for a thank you note. Well, her thank you note touched the donor so much
Wow.
that he reached back out to me to ask me whether or not there was any other assistance that he could provide to this student.
That's amazing.
Whether it was mentorship, whether it was guidance, whatever the case may be, he wanted to know how he could help her.
Unbelievable.
And so it's like, that's the kind of stuff that you get. So when I ask you to write a thank you note, it's not just so I have a piece of paper. It really does make a difference to these donors to hear what you're doing. And some of the essays, I take pieces out of it when I'm doing appeals or I'm doing grant requests, so that the donors, so that the people that were asking for funding, so that the foundations that we submit grant requests to, so that they can learn about our students. Our students are not the normal student. Our students work. They may be parents. They may be single parents. They're not just working one job. Some of them are working 2 and 3 jobs. They're coming to school because maybe they went to school and it didn't work out. Maybe they already have a degree, but it's not what they want. They're coming back for a second degree. So when I say our students aren't the norm, they really are the norm anymore.
Well, for
they
sure.
weren't. At one point in time, they weren't, because if you think about it, most college students at one point in time, they graduated, they went to school, they got a job. That's what they did. That's not the cycle anymore.
Most certainly not.
No.
Yeah.
And so they're not the norm, but they are the norm now. They're the norm for here, because everybody's working. Everybody's trying to figure out what can they do to expand their knowledge. What can they do to succeed in the workplace? What else can they add to their repertoire so that they can stand out in whatever field that that they're working in? So the education is very, very important, but the essays and the steps that we ask for within the essay process are very important too, because again, not only does it tell the donors about you, but hopefully you're learning something about yourself.
Absolutely.
So.
And another thing, Abby, is I wanted to ask you, I know that you're unbelievably involved with community service. Talk to me about, not only, yes, you've volunteered with and interned with Sandy and the foundation, but I know you're also very active with other nonprofit organizations and volunteering. So tell us a little bit about why that specifically speaks to you so much, and why it's so much so that you might even want to have your career in that area.
Right. So I think the biggest turning point of my life was I went through the transition of high school to college, and I hit a severe state of depression. I hit a point where I found no value in myself, unfortunately. It was a very dark point in my life, but at the same time, I was the only one that could pull myself out of it. And I wanted for the rest of my life for no one else to feel that way, everybody else to feel appreciated and valued, and to know that they have a bigger step in life.
You feel appreciated and valued now, correct?
Yeah, yes.
She should.
More
She
than
should.
enough. More than enough.
Sure.
But yes, so I think, and it wasn't anybody doing that to me. It was fully my own mind, unfortunately. But it was that state of mind and those changes in my life where I kind of had to let go of wanting to control everything that happens to me. So I was going to do what I could control, and that's how I react to others and how I respond to others. It's actually interesting. We talked about, connecting with other people, but on the West Shore Connect graduation day, there was a part where you could leave a note for me as a graduating mentor. And I forget who it was. It was one of the professors. He was like, I'm going to miss your hellos in the hallway. And those are things I just do like every day just because. And so you don't realize like the impact you're making. But with the nonprofit organizations that I've gotten involved with, they are truly out there to help each other. And I feel like that shouldn't just be a nonprofit way of life. That should be your way of life, because at one point or another, you're going to need another individual and you're not going to be able to do life alone. So it's how you impact others, and that's going to impact who you have behind you and who you have to lean on and kind of guide you through those obstacles of life.
Well, one of the roughest things for us as professors is obviously our job is to work with students, mentor them, get them to the finish line of graduation, give them every opportunity that they possibly can, help them be successful in that venture. On the other hand, that's one of the toughest things, is that you grow to develop such a fondness and a professional relationship with these students, and then many of them go and you never talk to them or see them again. The point is that's what can be very difficult, is when you invest so much time and energy in people. And hey, many of the former students, especially the great ones, I still do stay in touch with, But then there are other people that you work with for so many years, and then they move on. Now, listen, I'm not asking them to call me every week. Look, I get how weird that might be, but I also want to point out like how important it is for us to see our students being successful. For instance, future Nightly News Hall of Famer Jen Dulac just celebrated her first year at Fox 43 and made a post on LinkedIn about it. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff that just means the world to me, that she's doing great, that her education and everything that she did and all of her hard work here paid off, and that is where she's ended up, and she's happy. I mean, that to me just makes all the difference in the world, and I certainly hope in some way I can help you find that next step, but that really all we care about is that obviously you're making a decent living. I mean,
Yes.
We don't want you living on the streets,
Right.
but we want you to be happy. I mean, that's
Yes.
what it is. And in some way you need, look, every job's stressful, right? But at the end of the day, at least Sandy and I can go to sleep and wake up knowing that we are helping people, that we are setting our lives out in different ways, yes, but to help other people. And to me, that's what life's about. So in some way, whether it's through your job or through community service that you do, like that is something that people have to be involved with for them to really experience life in the way it's meant to live, in my personal
Exactly.
opinion.
I think too, even, contacting your past professors or, even career services, Steve Hassinger, Kristen Fike, when you come back and you talk to them about your career, or say even like internships that I've had, and I go back and I tell them, the benefits of what I've experienced, that's letting them know that the future student should go and apply for that place. That future student is getting X, Y, and Z out of that internship. So it's not just about, coming back and I'm doing great. Everybody loves to hear that. Like as a Central Penn alum, like that would be amazing. Come back and say I made it. But it's the same point of, giving back, whether it's, through the foundation or just giving back in the things that you've learned, because a lot of these situations, a lot of these majors are going to change over time. So it's giving that update of this is what it looks like in the field now.
100%, absolutely. And, I'm not even thinking about it yet because I don't want to come to terms with the fact that Abby's leaving. But of course, we understand. But that being said, Sandy, before we move on to the golf tournament, just for me personally, you have really, really made my position here so much more enjoyable by having me be part of the Foundation Scholarship Selection Committee. I know that it's 2 meetings a year, but it's probably 2 of the most memorable meetings of the year. And I've also, in turn, I've started a golf tournament that benefits the foundation. I've done, I compel, I don't like saying require, I compel my classes to fill out the applications, and I can't tell you how many people I've had email me after they've won money and said, I thought there was no chance I was going to win anything, and thank you so much for forcing us to do this,
Right.
even though, I didn't see the value in doing it at the time.
I mean, I keep telling people it'll take you a half an hour, because it's a story about you. So okay,
Well done
that's
one
that.
an hour most.
Right, an hour most. But if you have the potential to be awarded the minimum $500. I don't know where you're going to go to work that you're going to give $500 an hour. But
Not unless you get lucky on the scratch-off tickets.
But when you get there, I could probably help you. I might be an assistant of some sort. But that's what I'm saying. It's $500. It's worth the chance that you could be awarded $500
up to $2,000.
Up to $2,000.
So there's just generally speaking, there's a few $2,000 worth. There's many $1,000 and there's many $500. So,
Correct.
And again, what was the percentage when we did it last?
Okay,
Of
so
applicants who received money.
Right. The last time that we did it, we had 123 applications and 98 students received some kind of funding.
That is impressive.
Yes.
So and for the most part, certainly most people who apply are given a very fair chance,
Right.
even if they don't necessarily score super high on the. It kind of goes both ways. Like if you have a lower GPA, but you do very well on that, you're definitely in the running, and vice versa. Maybe if the essay's not 100%, but you have a high GPA, again, we're still in the running, and that's kind of why we're in the room, is to try to advocate for those
Right.
people.
And out of those 123, I will have to say this, some of them were ineligible.
Right.
Because of either their GPA or because they had finished. So they finished before we reviewed the application.
Right.
So if you're not registered
Correct.
here, if you're not enrolled, I can't give you a scholarship. So I think, as a matter of fact, I think there were about 10 or 14 that fit into that category.
Right.
So, I mean, that even drops it even more.
For sure.
So,
I
yeah.
think another part that I know we always bring up, but I feel like it's a needed conversation, is that little checkbox at the end.
Oh, yes.
For the Stabler Foundation, there's two caveats that I want to give anybody out there who is paying attention about this. Number one, when you see the checkbox about the Stabler Foundation, please make sure to check that box. It is a moral obligation, not a financial one, and that simply means that Sandy would appreciate, or whomever the future executive director is, would appreciate down the road if you would pay it forward, and that much of the money in that fund came from people who received and then gave back.
Right.
So it's not like Sandy or whomever is going to track you down, keep a ledger. It's just sort of that idea, it's sort of to plant that seed. Hey, down the road, would you consider doing
Right.
something like this?
Right, and I even do it as small as the year that you graduated. So $20, if you want to give $20.21 a year, at least you're making a contribution back so
Right.
that someone else can benefit from what it is that you benefited from when you received the scholarship. So it's just that. And on top of that, again, it's another one of those things where you give back. I'm a firm believer, you give what you get.
For sure.
Or you get what you give, whatever the case may be, however you want to
ways.
look at it, either way. But, if you give to help someone else, you will be rewarded in some way, shape, or form, I think, tenfold by
And
your
honestly,
generosity.
Even for the thing like the golf tournament, which is, listen, my golf tournament is nowhere near the size of what you're talking about, but I can at least sympathize with you. It's a lot of work.
Yes.
It's not like life-changing money, but to know that all of the work that I'm doing is going into giving us a scholarship in the name of my friend who's passed on. And I got to tell you, Sandy, I remember and recall reading the thank you note that I got from that last year, and it was something that I shared with all of the people who played that day, which was about 20.
Right.
And it was touching.
Yes.
I mean, I know for most of these people, they're just showing up and having fun, and I'm the one in the background doing most of the work to set this up. But all of that work is worth it in the end to read that letter, and that thank you letter was so important. Last thing I want to say is, number one, of course, please proofread. You are being evaluated
Right.
on proofreading, but really is the whole 200-word minimum. Of course, Sandy always mentions that that's just there to try to throw people off, just
Right.
to see the how much time you're actually putting into this, and that we really encourage you to give a page to 2 pages. I mean,
Right.
that's how is anybody going to get to know you in 2 paragraphs?
Right. I mean, take whatever it is that you need to tell the story, to answer the question. But you're right. I mean, if you just say, well, I'm going to do this, perfect examples. How's your degree going to make a difference? Well, I'm going to get a job. Okay. And then I'm going to pay my bills.
That's not making a difference.
That's not making a difference. That's surviving. There's a difference. How are you going to make a difference? What are you going to do with that? Tell me more about that, because I can guarantee you're going to get a job, you're going to pay your bills, not going to get you an award. Not getting you a scholarship. Not going to do it. take the time, tell us about yourself, tell us what it is. Even if you don't achieve it, what are you thinking? What do you plan? What would you like? What's your dream to be? What do you hope to accomplish? I'm not going to come back later on to see if you did it. I just want to know what it is you want to do, what you want to do. You can dream about this.
I love it. Well, I tell you what, everybody's going to make sure they go to foundation.centralpenn.edu between August 5th and August 30th to fill out the Central Penn College Education Foundation scholarship application. We have a couple minutes here before we're going to get out of here, so I want to talk about everyone's favorite annual event, and I do mean everyone, in the 53rd Annual Golf Open that will take place on August 9th at Rich Valley Golf in the morning. And, of course, you can always reach out to Sandy for more information on that. We talked earlier that you're still looking for a couple of teams, but let's talk a little bit more about this. And, again, we just have a couple minutes left, but, Sandy, this is the last one. This is the last one that you are personally going to be putting together. Yes. And so I want to know what your feelings are. Not so much. We've talked about the Open in the past and how it's your largest fundraiser, all very important. The soft pretzels, the beverage carts, the beautiful, immaculate luncheon, prizes and raffles and mulligans and all the whole 9 yards. As a golfer, it's the best golf tournament that I play in every year, and I play in several. So that's the only sales pitch that you need. But right. I want to know, as you look back to all of the golf opens, what are some of the best memories that you have? What does this mean to you personally? Because your fingerprints are all over it.
Well, what does it mean to me personally? It's funny because people always ask me, so you golf? No, I do not golf.
You're missing out.
Well, that's what I'm told, but I don't golf. But I tell people I throw a party around golf. My most memorable, I'd say, several years ago, we raised more than $40,000, which was fascinating. We had 36 teams. It was fascinating that we won $40,000. I mean, that we raised $40,000. I was very excited about that. It was probably the longest day ever because there's 36 teams, which meant that every hole was doubled up. So
it was like 5.5 hours.
It was at least 5.5 hours. I think it might have been closer to the 6. So it was a very, very long day, but it was for a good cause. So I'm excited about that.
Beverage carts and pretzels.
I know.
Amuse yourself out there.
Exactly. So the beverage carts are, of course, that's one of the biggest draws. The funny thing is, we've been at Rich Valley now for I think 6 or 7 years, if not longer, and they always tell me out there that they tell others about our outing and how it's run because we make so much more money than most of the other outings that are there. And so, as a matter of fact, they asked me if I wanted to come to work for them when I retire to help with their goal.
That might be an interesting career path.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm not really quite there yet. But I would say that. But you know what the most fun is and the most enjoyment that I get is, first off, the students that we help. That's number one. Of course. But number two is that at the end of the day, every golfer, or almost, it seems like every golfer, comes up and says, thank you so very much. It was a wonderful day. It was a great event, and we love the fact that you keep it moving. To me, that's, and I take their feedback. If they come up and say, hey, you might want to change this, or it was really good, Sandy, but this was a little long. I listen to them. I make the changes. Anybody who's golfed with me for over the years knows that at one point in time we did raffles. We had like 30-some raffle baskets. And it took a long time to call out each person who won those raffle baskets. Then we changed it to, we pulled them, and then you just looked at the tickets.
Right.
Then we changed it to now we have 2 or 3 large raffle baskets.
And I won last year, too,
Did you?
by the way.
There you go. So, so we've changed. So as people give me ideas, I change. I'm open to whatever. But it's just the fun. That's what I tell people. It's really, obviously, it's to raise funds for our students. That's the goal. But what's just as important to me is that everyone has a great time.
Of course.
That's what's important, is that they have a great time, because if they have a great time,
they're going to come back.
They're coming back, and they're coming back, and they're coming back, and that's what it's all about.
You haven't gotten rid of me yet. So.
There you go. So,
And here's what I'm looking forward to. Abby is actually going to get to experience her very first golf tournament.
Yes.
She was interning last year, but circumstances arose and she was unable to make it. So she will be there this year.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to seeing what you think about the whole. It's so much fun. It's not even going to feel like work. And that's what's crazy is all the time and effort and energy you're putting into it. Sandy is so great at running this. It's going to run itself.
Yeah.
Because of all the preparation you've put into it.
Right.
Now, if you don't put the preparation into it, then there's going to be hiccups. But I've never even seen one because you are so detail oriented that it runs perfectly every time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, Sandy, like I said, we will have you on again
Yes,
before
absolutely.
that fateful day in December. But honestly, and I don't feel bad to say this, you're my favorite guest. You come in here with such a high enthusiasm level, and it means so much to me to be a part of the foundation in whatever small role that I play. It really means the world to me, and of course, we're going to miss you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I appreciate everything you've done for me over the years. Always handed me the interns that always make my job much easier.
I do what I can.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
But they all speak extremely highly of you as well, which, of course, I would expect them to. But it means the world that you allow them that opportunity to work with you.
It's a joy.
And Abby, again, we'll have you on later this term as well. You'll be on our final podcast of this term before you ride off into the sunset. But again, I can't thank you enough for not only at this point the mentorship that you're now providing some of our younger club members, the solid rock that many of your classmates have constantly looked to as sort of a beacon of what hard work and dedication can do. And you're going to get out of here with somebody's resume who's probably been in this industry for 2 or 3 years because of all of the different opportunities that you've taken over time. So you're one I don't worry about because I know it's all going to work out for you.
Well,
but I certainly hope that you stay in touch, though.
Yes, I appreciate everything. I appreciate everything you do for the club and for your students. And Sandy, I appreciate just you being you. I think that goes a long way. I think anybody can stick to most people can stick to a schedule and do things, but Sandy does it with a different type of motivation and drive, and all within that crazy schedule that I just looked over. She's positive and she's always smiling and she's always looking to help you out. And, even if it's a quick Google search, she's going to help you. So I appreciate you both for helping me along the way.
Our pleasure.
That's why we're here.
I was going to say,
right?
It's our pleasure.
I just wish we had 100 of you.
I know.
Just one. But I don't think there ever could be another one of you guys.
No.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much to Sandy and Abby for joining us here, talking about everything going on with the Central Penn College Education Foundation. Of course, from August 5th through 30th, you can go to foundation.centralpenn.edu to check out the scholarship application and call Sandy or email, which I'll put her email along with this, if you're interested in being a part of the golf tournament on August 9th at Rich Valley Golf. So, again, thank you so much, Sandy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you so much, Abby.
Yes, thank you.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. For Sandy Box and Abby Bresky, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll see you again next time on the Nightly News Podcast.
I'm Dylan Bowman, former president of the Nightly News, and you're listening to the Nightly News Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I'm so honored to be joined by one of our student success coaches, but also one of the people who is in charge of many of the really awesome events here on campus, Elijah Tinson. Elijah, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's always a great pleasure being on the show, so appreciate you.
Well, it's interesting, and we kind of just talked about this before the show. You actually had the privilege, I suppose, to be the first person in our new podcast studio, and we are actually on the move again. We are actually going to have a big, hopefully, fingers crossed, a big open house in the fall term and invite, all of our former guests and supporters. I want to have you be the first person in the new podcast studio as well.
I'm perfectly fine with that. We can make that happen for sure. So, I'm okay.
I'm super excited. So excited for that to happen. And of course, we will show all of you next term, as I'm giving a little spoiler. We don't have a date yet, but trust me, you will know about it when the time comes. And if you'd like to be on the guest list, please reach out to Paul Miller at centralpenn.edu. Well, something that we do every term here with Elijah is to go over some of the amazing things going on here on campus that Elijah has scheduled. So the first thing, there's a couple of things I want to talk about here first before we get into the featured events of the term. And first and foremost is, especially for any new students who are on campus here over the summer, SGA. So SGA is one of the clubs that you work very closely with, and wanted to just point out that this week, week 4, and also week 8 is the SGA meetings on Wednesday at noon in the courtroom. But I want to talk about SGA, about what its function is, maybe some of the things that SGA has accomplished over the past couple of terms, and also why it's so important that students from around campus get involved with this club specifically and the impact that it might have. So let's start at the beginning. What are some of the things that the SGA has been involved with during your purview and since your time here?
Yeah, so SGA, again, is Student Government Association. It's kind of the driving force for a lot of the clubs on campus. It's the one that really is going to help drive student interaction, student engagement on campus. And some of the things that we've done previously, they've done collaboration events with BSU, AAB, the Juneteenth event celebration that we had.
That was fantastic.
That was an SGA collaboration with BSU. Actually coming up, which we'll talk about probably in a couple seconds, is the SGA pool party. So like doing different event ideas, things like that. But what SGA's whole purpose really is, it's meant to give students a voice to really come out and say what they really want to see on campus, how things happen. We have a SGA president who is very vocal about some of the views that he wants to see happen on campus. And, the only way he's going to be able to make it happen is if everybody else, buys in and really supports him in that.
And who are the club officers, just if a student would meet them or run into them?
Yeah, so the president is Sadiq Houghton. The vice president is Seth Parr. And we're currently working on the other positions for that, which would be secretary and treasurer.
I think that's great. Seriously, Sadiq and Seth are very visible around campus. Seth has also joined the Nightly News, so we get to see him. And we're actually trying to pitch to him an opportunity to write more about the things that SGA is doing, some of the initiatives that they have. Why I always thought SGA was such an important piece, especially since it's been revitalized over the past, half decade or so, is that I would say, unlike other schools, the SGA here has the ear of our administration more so than almost anywhere else I can think of. I mean, almost any time SGA needs to, maybe there used to be like a standing meeting, but I know that the administration of the school not only encourages, but like actively seeks out feedback from the SGA in order to help some of the initiatives that are going around on campus, which I think is really unique.
And to your point, we have done a little bit of meeting with the president, and for example, there was a whole thing going with the meal plans, right? So in one of our SGA meetings, Sadiq basically asked the people that showed up to the meeting, like, what do you guys want to see in regards to the meal plan? Like, what can we do to help improve the environment on campus? What can we do? And people listed their ideas, and he took that to the president, and they discussed it, they talked about it, and like I said, he's in a position where he's the vocal point, like you just said, to administration for the students. Like, that's really what he is. So,
but at the same time, though, if the students don't come forward with their feedback, SGA can't know. So the one thing I do want to point out that is very important about these SGA meetings, and correct me if I'm wrong here, certainly they're open to any student, but certainly would be a place if a student did have a concern of some type of feedback, positive or negative, that they would be able to come to a meeting and have an open forum to be able to discuss that with the SGA.
Oh yeah, for sure. The SGA meetings are, when we do open it up to an open forum, open table, it is really a come as you please and voice as you please. We're not there to judge you, because at the end of the day, this is your way to really make the best of your college experience, and that's what their job is to try to make it better for you. So at that point, it has to be a comfortable place, a safe space for you to come talk about certain things. So,
and as you know, students are opinionated about their thoughts about how things operate, and this is an opportunity for them to take advantage of the systems we have in place to address these types of things. And so, anytime I hear, just whether someone's saying it to me or just in general, some type of feedback about what's going on in student life, I always encourage them to voice those concerns at SGA, frankly, in front of people who might be able to solve those issues versus, just talking to a friend just to hear yourself complain. So there is a fine line, and just coming to a meeting does not necessarily mean you're a club member or anything like that. But if you do want to take that step and you do want to be an advocate for your fellow students, that's also something that you could be involved with as part of the Student Government Association.
For sure.
Well, I did want to point out one of the things that SGA is doing is throwing a pool party this Thursday, August 1st from 5:30 to 7:30 at the pool just next to the library. So again, one of those things that SGA is doing to just build a positive camaraderie around campus. And I think SGA, as well as all of us, are really looking forward to our new class of students who start in the fall. Again, Wednesday in the courtroom for SGA meetings at noon during weeks 4 and 8, and the SGA pool party August 1st from 5:30 to 7:30. All right, one more thing that I wanted to talk about. You have been doing a number of different trips. I would love to hear what were some of the trips that you've taken recently and some feedback that you got from the students and maybe even some of your own experiences that you've done.
Yeah, so as of recently, maybe week 1 actually, we did a trip to Washington, D.C., and that
hopefully it was not one of those 100-degree days, was it?
It actually was. It was. We went to the zoo.
Oh, geez.
So not only was it one of those really hot days, but we're outside walking around the zoo. It was still a fun time. We made the most of it. But yes, we've done trips to the DC twice now. That was the second time. We are doing a trip this Sunday to Ocean City, New Jersey, for a beach trip. We're doing another trip to Lake Tobias at some point. We are doing a trip to the Wax Museum down in Baltimore.
And I wanted to talk about that. So it seems that every few weeks you're organizing some type of trip to try to get the students on campus, off campus, to see. And to be honest, I'm sure you know this. That's one of the best things about this area. We're an hour and a half from Baltimore, 2.5 from D.C., 2 to Philly, 3 to Pittsburgh, 3 to New York. We are so centrally located here where we are in Harrisburg. It's best to, and even to your point, 3.5, 4 to the beach. So we're very centrally located. So I love that you're doing some different things.
So again, it's a BSU is hosting the trip. So it's they have like an African American wax museum in Baltimore. I actually visited once as a fourth grader, so little dated on that one, a little back for me. But it's an immersive experience with it because again, it's. You kind of see some things in there that are a little tougher topics to see, but
of course,
I do think it is worth going. And then what we'll do, so what we're going to do is like first half of that trip is going to be in the museum. The museum's not super big, so we'll probably be there for 2-3 hours, and then after that, go to the harbor area, and people can kind of just venture off, do what they want to do, things like that.
And that's what I like about your trips too, because in at least the trips we've talked about previously, plus this one, it's sort of, hey, we're going to do something to, that's more educational based, but then you're going to still have that time to go out and do what you want and go to a cool restaurant or walk around the harbor or stop by the aquarium or what have you based on our time, which I love because it gives it that everyone's allowed to kind of do their own thing in a new town for many people. I'm sure there's plenty of people who are going to go that may have never been to Baltimore before. And just honestly, on a nice day to walk around that harbor, you can't beat it. Now, don't jump in and swim.
Yeah, I wouldn't advise that at all.
But there's something breathtaking about it, I'm sure we've all seen it on TV. If we've never been there, I'm sure many of us have actually been there. I'm actually looking forward to go down and sometime in August as well and take my son, because I don't recall since he was a little kid that we've gone down to the harbor. Now, we go down to Orioles game, which we're going to do that night, but I think that day we're actually going to go back to the aquarium, and it's been so long since I've been there, and of course, walk around the harbor while we're there. So again, that's a really cool experience. That's going to be on September 15th to the Baltimore Wax Museum. Again, I'll put Elijah's information on here. Please be sure to reach out and reserve your trip as, if that's something that you would be interested in doing. So, Elijah, again, thank you so much for organizing these trips. I know it's a lot of work, but I'm sure it's also really fun.
It's a lot of fun, to say the least, and I think a lot of the students do enjoy it.
Of course.
Again, like you said, going places that you may not have ventured to outside of that. That's the reason behind why we do a lot of these trips, is because it gives people the opportunity to do things that they probably wouldn't have done anyways outside of that. Yeah,
and enrich their college experience.
100%.
All right. Well, as we do each term, we've now gotten to the 3 featured events that we want to talk about here. The first of which is the BSU Lock-In. This is going to take place on August 9th from 7 to 12, 7 p.m. to midnight in ATEC 200. So tell us a little bit more, maybe if people are new to the idea of a lock-in, what a lock-in is.
Well, so a lock-in is it's usually it's supposed to be like one of those things where you show up and you don't leave until, say, 12 o'clock. But the way that we kind of do it here is a little bit different. It's kind of like a kickback type of thing for people to just come, as they please, as they want, relax, get some good food, and, just kind of talk with people and have fun and chill out with different students on campus. Just giving people something to do on a Friday night that, if they don't have anything to do, why not, right? Something different.
And also, like you said, a social thing, but also potentially a chance to get out, meet new people, and potentially even network. I mean, I know that students, when you're thinking about, leisure time, don't necessarily look at networking, but to me, that was one of the greatest things about college is I befriended people who also had similar interests as I did. And as we grew older, those interests turned into jobs, turned into job opportunities. And yes, they were our friends, but we had similar interests. And that's what I mean by sort of just getting out of that, hey, I just hang out with my roommates, or hey, I just hang out with 1 or 2 other people on campus. You get to meet new people, you get to experience new people, and you get to learn about other people's experiences, which I think is really unique.
Yeah, and I do just want to specify, because I think sometimes people, they see that BSU is on it and they're like, oh, maybe I'm not allowed to go or something like that. No, these events are open to everybody and anybody. As long as you're a student here, by all means, show up. It's okay. You can go and have fun with us. It's fine.
And that's to be said for everything that we're talking about on here for sure.
Any of these events are open to everybody, anybody. It's not just because you're a part of these clubs that, that's what it is. No, if you're not a part of it, you can still go and participate in these events.
And I appreciate that you mentioned that, because a lot of people wonder, like, with the club sponsorship, it's just an event that they're putting together. Like the Nightly News, we've been sponsoring the film series every term for as long as I can remember. And that's, people are always like, well, what does it mean? And it's like, the Nightly News is here. We're helping to put this together. Maybe we have a couple people working the greeting period, but that's pretty much it. It's really just a whole campus thing that is meant for people to just enjoy their time together. So again, that's the BSU Lock-In. It's going to be on August 9th from 7 p.m. to midnight in ATEC 200. Second thing we wanted to take a look at is the Paint and Sip Night, sponsored by AAB. That's going to be on August 14th at 7 o'clock in the NPR, and these are really awesome. I saw last time that you did this, you had a full house. So tell us a little bit more about the last experience and what people can expect this time.
Yeah, so the Paint and Sip has been an idea and of an event that we've done since I've been here. We've done it now 3 times, and every time I think it's gotten a little bit bigger than the
I don't
previous
think you
time.
could have had anyone else in that room last time from the pictures I saw.
Yeah, it's quite the time. It's a lot of fun, to say the least. I think people would think, oh, I'm just going there to paint, but in all reality, it's really one, it's a stress reliever because, believe it or not, painting actually kind of eases your mind on things. But 2, it is cool to have, again, you're meeting people, but then you literally either you have the option to follow along with the person that's doing the painting, or you can go ahead and freestyle, do what you want to do. And again, just have fun. And I think people, sometimes forget that you can have fun in college. So.
Well, of course. But, I am not an artist, but I will say that I've never actually gone to a Paint and Sip night, but I've seen how they go. Even if you are like me and would not think of yourself as an artist at all, you would be shocked how nice of a job you can do when you kind of have somebody at the front of the room just kind of walking you through the process. Almost like watching Bob Ross on TV. Like the art that he does is insane. But when you actually watch him do it, he's just having a good old time. Of course, he's got years and years of training.
Yeah,
but not that you could recreate a Bob Ross painting, but it just, the way that he approaches it just makes it accessible for everyone. And I know for a fact that the instructor of this night does the exact same thing because they want it to be approachable.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The lady's name is Joy. She does a great job every time she's come here. Very interactive, and even as somebody who's not a pro painter myself, I ask a lot of questions, and she's always willing to help. She doesn't take it as like, oh my goodness, this is somebody asking 50,000 questions. No, she's there. She's like, I'm gonna help you. You know, if you need the help. So it is very nice to have somebody welcoming and engaging like that. With that, and then the sip aspect is the mocktails that we have. So again, if those of y'all don't know what mocktails are, it's basically everything but the alcohol in the drink, because we are a dry campus at Central Penn College.
And,
so.
it is fun to mix up some things that you might not have otherwise, alcohol-free, of course. So again, that's the Paint and Sip Night, sponsored by AAB on August 14th at 7 o'clock in the NPR. Last but not least, we're going to go to September, and on September the 10th will be another rousing edition of karaoke in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater from 6 to 8 p.m. I know that there was just another recent karaoke competition, I suppose you would say, for lack of a better term, and again, always looks like a blast. So what type of interface do you use for the karaoke?
To be honest, YouTube is our greatest friend. We just go on YouTube, and people put their request in, and we just look up the karaoke versions of those songs.
Okay.
And you just put it right up on the screen, and
so they have karaoke versions of all of these different songs? Wow, I guess I never even knew that. That's really neat.
Yeah, so you could do that, or just some people, because they don't like to sing the karaoke versions, you just look up the ones with lyrics, the songs with the lyrics, and that makes it work for people too, because then they don't feel like they're singing by themselves.
Gotcha. That's really neat. How many would you say typically do you have on a given night from start to finish, like on average?
So it depends. The one that we have recently did not have a huge showing like we usually do. Usually we'd have at least 20 people that would come out.
Well, summers, there's less people on campus. It's understandable.
Yeah, and what we're going to start doing, we're kind of making it like a karaoke series. So we're going to have like 2 or 3 each term going forward.
Nice.
Just to kind of make it, again, something different for people to come out and do on like a Wednesday or a Tuesday night. So it really depends. We try to have different types of foods and things like that, kind of, switch it up so people get different experiences every time they show up to each of these experiences and each of these events. So,
and again, Elijah, I really appreciate just the depth of different types of things, from a pool party to a paint and sip to a lock-in to getting people involved on campus with their student government to doing off-campus trips to karaoke. I mean, you're really trying to pack that activities calendar full, and I appreciate that every week you send it out to all of the students and faculty what's going on this week, because just as well as I do working in higher education. I'm not even talking about just here at Central Penn. Students are always complaining there's nothing going on. And there's no way here at this campus they can possibly say that. And if they do, I'm sending them right over to your office, and you're going to educate them on what is to do here.
And in those types of situations, if there's a student that feels like there's not anything that intrigues them, come to my office so we can talk about different ideas. Okay, you don't think there's anything going on? Well, what interests you that I could possibly work with to make an event for? Different things like that.
To that point, the last thing I want to point out is you are also very involved with the AB. And if you think there's nothing to do here, there is a club called the Activities Advisory Board, and you would be more than welcome to come down and pitch your ideas to the club, join the club, help put on these events. The world is your oyster, and that's one of the benefits, in my personal opinion, to go into a place like Central Penn. You can literally make your education whatever you want it to be. You can work on a variety of different opportunities through clubs and organizations here on campus. We have student worker positions. I mean, you literally can join AAB and put on any type of event that you want. I mean, this is really the benefit of going to a place like this, is because you can get so involved and you can make it what you want it to be. So I just want to thank you for tirelessly working to fill up that activity schedule.
Yeah, and again, you are right. It is all about the experiences which you make it, right? And again, you're more than just a number here, right? You literally, with a small campus like this, like you said, you have control of your own college experience, 100%. Your own world. So why not take advantage of it? Why not make the most of the opportunity? You know what I mean? So.
Well, I just want to recap everything, just go down in order. Starting on August 1st, the SGA pool party from 5:30 to 7:30 at the pool outside of the library. On August 9th is the BSU Lock-In in ATEC 200 from 7 p.m. to midnight. On the August 14th is the AAB Paint and Sip Night. That's 7 p.m. in the multipurpose room, followed by, don't forget, weeks 4 and 8 at noon in the courtroom for the SGA open meetings. The karaoke evening on September the 10th from 6 to 8 in the theater, and the September 15th trip to Baltimore to the Wax Museum and the Harbor. You've got tons, and this is certainly not even it. This is only just a tip of the iceberg of all the things on the activities calendar. So again, please check out every single week. Elijah very diligently sends out that activities calendar, so always keep an eye on that. And again, if you have any questions about any of these things, please feel free to reach out to Elijah, and I will put his email along with this podcast. So again, Elijah, thank you so much for everything. You're one of the hardest working people on this campus.
I appreciate that. Thank you for having me on here.
Well, hey, next time it hopefully will be the first podcast in our new studio, so you can say that you were number one in 2 consecutive studios in a row.
I'm with it. I'm with it all. Trust me.
All right. Well, hey, Elijah, again, thank you so much. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. For Elijah Tinson, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll see you again next time on the Nightly News Podcast.